When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube, and welcome back to the Grease Goblins YouTube channel. And in today's video, we're going to be doing the top 10 worst decisions within the current story of A Song of Ice and Fire. So this is not going to be talking about past decisions or like stuff in Robert's Rebellion or, you know, any of the Targaryen history. This is going to be the main series, basically, because it'd be super hard to just pick 10 moments from the entire history. So I tried to cut it down a little bit and make this a little bit more concise. So yeah. But before we get into the video, if you guys would like to subscribe, like, and comment for more type of content like this, please do. Helps the channel reach more people that might like this content as well. And yeah, let's get into it. So before we get into the top 10, I actually have a lot of honorable mentions because this is a very hard list to do. And if I miss any, let me know down in the comments. This is really difficult to kind of just put in 10 things that were blaringly, obviously bad. I also tried to group some things together where it was kind of like a couple bad decisions kind of looped in one. So yeah, I'm going to start out with, in my honorable mentions, I'm going to have Renly and Stannis fighting. Renly just should have backed Stannis, or they should have at least put their problems away, right? Gotten together, defeated the real enemy, and then sorted their stuff out. Because this whole infighting basically let the Lannisters kind of get, buys them some time, and just, it divided two forces that should have been on the same side. So yeah, that's why that one is a bad decision. Viserys going with the Dothraki was just a weird and poor decision, as well as his abuse with Dany constantly. It just eventually caught up with him, and he should have just stayed with Illyrio until the Dothraki and Dany were, convinced, Cal, like they do in the actual book, to go across, and then he would have came with them, and he could have possibly been king. Who knows? The next one, I'm going to say Stannis converting to the Red God. Openly, this would kind of, a lot of houses looking at this going, what is this foreign, god or whatever? They don't, it makes Stannis look much worse in the public eye, not being part of the Seven and burning all these ideals down that a lot of these people have had for their entire lives. To me, it's just a bad decision. You can always use the power of the Red God, but making it kind of what your entire whole house is built around with, the red heart and stuff like that on the banners, not a good move for Stannis, in my opinion. Another thing, I would just say a lot of Dany's decision making in Dance, with her staying in Marine, and kind of the decisions to, kill all the masters or slavers and all that. Just not a good look for me. I think she makes a lot of bad decisions in Marine, and I feel like she should have just kept going. I think she is more of a conqueror than a ruler, and especially when Marine is a culture that's been built in for so long. It's very hard to just upheaval that and then just expect everything to be fine. So, yeah, that's where Dany's in there. Robb executing Lord Karstark, terrible decision. We'll continue to see a lot of Robb's bad decisions with his mother and all that, and the Starks just in general. But him executing the Karstark, Lord was just terrible. He should have just kept him as a prisoner to kind of just keep the Karstark forces in line, but he doesn't, and he chooses the honorable way and kills him. Another one, we have Jorah Mormont. This one kind of, some people might forget maybe because it was, kind of a little bit earlier in the books or whatnot. But leading 300 against thousands of wildlings on their turf, it just was a bad move. What should have happened is, right, they get to the, the Fist of the First Men, and they get these reports. They're like, okay, this, they've got thousands and thousands of, wildlings. And even when they get this information from, where Jon, one of the guys comes back, he still is like, we're going to sit here and fight. What? The initial meeting of reasoning of why you're going to go north is to figure out what's going on, right? And you figured out that Mance has gathered this great army and is going to come south. Why wouldn't you fight them on the wall? You're saying they're so, like, civilized and stuff like that. Well, if that's true, on the wall, you'd be able to defend way easier than the Fist of the First Men. So again, that's a bad one as well. Jon making the pink letter is another bad decision where he makes it public knowledge to the Night's Watch, and as well as that he's going to leave and go to Winterfell, thus breaking his vows. Really bad decision as well. And that's going to lead me into number 10. So John in Dance, for me, he just makes a lot of bad decisions. You know, like I just said with John and the Pink Letter, his handling of the wildlings and the Night's Watch, you know, just not really understanding how people work, in my opinion, and just seeing how everybody flips on him and stuff like that. John, to me, just makes too many bad decisions in Dance, and that's the reason he ends up dying. But I also think it's a bad decision by the Night's Watch to kill him in general. But yeah. So number 9 is going to be King in the North. So this is a really bad decision. I've actually done a video on this if you'd like to see it. But the whole idea of making Robb King of the North is just a bad decision. It just, you can't really make peace with anyone now because nobody is going to let you just take the biggest part of the kingdom and just walk away, right? Stannis says that. The Crown says that, so Joffrey at this point says that, or Tywin as well. It just alienates you from making alliances easier, right? And that's kind of how I look at that decision. The King of the North just doesn't make sense to me. I think you should have just allied with either whoever won with Stannis and Renly, which ended up being Stannis. But again, that didn't happen, and it's a bad decision. Now, number 8 might be higher for a lot of you guys, but I have Cat/Ned trusting Littlefinger. I put this one more on Cat because she's the one that's like telling Ned to trust Littlefinger, and Ned's kind of taking her word for it. And Cat at this point should know, like, I guess maybe not know because she hasn't seen Littlefinger in so long, and I think that's why I give this a little like lower on the list. Because Cat really, I guess, you kind of give her a pass for not really understanding that Littlefinger is not the same person. But at the same time, I mean, she should just be able to figure this out. He's running a brothel. How do you think? I don't know. In just hindsight, I guess it's easier to hate this decision for them to trust and stuff like that. But again, Catelyn just should not be trusting Littlefinger like that. So yeah, that is why. Number 8. Number 7. Catelyn capturing Tyrion. Another really bad decision by Catelyn. Just basing your, whole thing of, hey, let's capture Tyrion because he's here. Like, you just went to Ned and said, and you just had this whole conversation where you're like, we need to get proof before we can do anything and go against the Lannisters. And Ned just gave you this whole thing where he's like, we need to prepare the North to, get ready for this war that's possibly going to happen with Tywin, right? And Catelyn goes against all of that. She basically gives Tywin a free pass to start invading the Riverlands because you openly just captured a Lannister. So a really bad decision. And then she makes it even worse by going to Lysa and the Eyrie. She just makes so many bad decisions with that, and it starts a whole bunch of war type stuff. It hurts Ned as well in the North because Jaime attacks him, or not North, in King's Landing. It's just a terrible decision. Number 6 is going to be a two-parter, but it's still kind of number 6, right? So the Greyjoys' plan in general, with trying to attack the North instead of allying with Robb, is a terrible idea because the Greyjoys just can't conquer the North. It's too big. They are probably out of the major houses the least powerful besides their naval power. As well as Theon betraying Robb. Theon could have told Robb, what was going on. Robb could have sent some forces up, and this would have never happened. And Theon could have been sitting here going, okay, when this is all over, Robb, you can just take out, Theon's dad, and then bam. But I don't know. I think the whole Greyjoys, they just make bad decisions after bad decision after bad decision. So I just decided to put the Greyjoys here at number 6. Number 5 is going to be Robb marrying Jane Westerling. This is just a bad one for obvious reasons. You break your alliance to Walder Frey. And the biggest thing that I kind of see why this is even worse in the books than the show, because the show it was kind of more of a love thing where Robb kind of fell in love with her and stuff like that. In the books, it's really just Robb kind of was horny. He sleeps with Jane, and then he's like, okay, well, I just took her maidenhead, so I guess I honor tells me I have to marry her. And that's what he ends up doing. It's a terrible decision. I get it, right? You want to be honorable and all that, but how many people died because of that decision? So again, just a really bad decision by Robb, and yeah. Number 4, Joffrey beheading Ned. So this is just a bad move in general by Joffrey. Joffrey beheading Ned is what really destroys any chance of peace with the North, because I think if Ned would have been able to take the Black, and all of this is kind of settled, Sansa and Arya are returned back to the Starks, and Jaime's returned to them, I think there could have been peace. So for me, I think Joffrey doing this kind of screws Tywin at the beginning of this war. It kind of lets there be this three-pronged war with Renly, Robb, and then, Stannis. And I think if you would have not beheaded Ned, right, and then you also had Ned proclaiming that Joffrey was a true king, and you could have let that go. The thing is, you could have given Tywin enough time to try and deal with, whoever comes out on top with Renly and Stannis. And you could have had just a singular war instead of it being, another, like I said. So that is number 4. Number 3 is going to be Cersei empowering the Sparrows. Just, you look at how stupid of a decision this is. There's a reason Maegor the Cruel just went away with this. Like, it was such a bad idea, giving a bunch of just religious kind of cult people the right to just give themselves weapons. Like, how do you think that was going to go well? Like, you'd rather have them than have the Tyrells, when the Tyrells have pretty much, like, yes, they're trying to gain power, but they've been nothing but good to you. They are the reason you are alive right now, Cersei. Cersei just is she thinks she's so smart, but she's just not smart. So there's also a number of other decisions I could put up on here for Cersei as well. Things like, if we look at, Tyrion, when Cersei thinks she has Tyrion's whore, Alayla, I think that's her name, Alayla or something like that, some weird name, and it's not, and she thinks she's so smart and stuff like that. Also doing the pyromancer thing, and then, having all this wildfire, but then not really training any of the troops how to use it, and not even knowing how to use it. They were going to try to, I assume, launch it from catapults before Tyrion stepped in, which would be a terrible idea. Actually, I want to just say, it was a terrible idea because Cersei wasn't training them how to actually do it. I just want to clarify that. So yeah, going into number 2, we have Cat freeing Jaime. Now, I have this above all of the other mistakes by Catelyn and Robb, and Ned as well, because of one key thing. The Red Wedding would not happen without this. Right? Like, there's still a chance that the Red Wedding would have happened, even if Robb was supposed to marry a Frey. Just because Robb was on the losing side anyway, and Walder Frey could see that. The only thing there would be Robb really wouldn't have a reason to go to the Freys. He would still need to cross again to get back to the north and try to reclaim the north. So maybe Walder Frey could still do it then and try to gain favor with Tywin. But this is a big one. Tywin would have never attempted this if Jaime is still in their custody. Because Jaime, again, is the golden boy and all that. And with them still having Jaime in custody, Tywin knows that if he does anything like this, like a Red Wedding, Jaime's dead. I mean, there's no shot. This would all start going on, and then bam, the car starts, instantly they go kill Jaime. So, again, for me, this is the worst decision. It just kind of is the final nail in the coffin for me. For really House Stark, even though I know, Robb marrying Jane happens realistically in the story, it happens about the same time. We just find out about it a little later. But I think this is probably the worst move in that point of view. So you guys might be thinking, what is number 1? I kind of went for, I guess, a cheesy one. But this really, to me, is the most important one. And that is Westeros just ignoring the Wall. The Wall constantly saying we need more men. The Wildlings are gathering an army. And, the White Walkers, or, the others in the books, are coming to the Wall and all this stuff, and just constantly being ignored, laughed at, not taken seriously. And that's probably going to be the difference in how far the others get into Westeros, with how underprepared the entire continent is at this point. So that, for me, I think is why I made it number 1. I think it's the most important one that affects everything going on. So yeah, that is the video. So if you guys have any other decisions that you think were bad that should be on this list, or at least being talked about, let me know. As I'm finishing this video, I just thought of one. Dany trusting Mira Mazdur to kind of help was just a bad idea as well. I just thought I'd throw that one in there as well, just because I was thinking about it as I'm closing the video. So yeah, I will see you guys all in the next one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.